Storytelling, The Sovereign's Second Chance. Episode 1, The Fall of the Crimson Empire. The snow over the capital city of Valoria was not white, it was crimson. It was stained by the blood of 10,000 men, the last defiant stand of the Iron Empire. Emperor Caelus Thorn stood alone on the precipice of the obsidian spire. His armor, once a shining testament to his invincibility, was shattered. His breath came in ragged, frothing gasps. He clutched the gaping wound in his chest, but the blood would not stop. It pooled around his boots, steaming in the freezing winter air. Below him, the city burned. The screams of his people drifted up on the wind, a haunting choir to his failure. "It didn't have to end this way, Caelus." The voice was soft, cultured, and dripping with a false sense of pity. Caelus didn't need to turn around to know who it was. He had known this moment was coming for 3 years, though he had denied it with every fiber of his being. "Varian," Caelus rasped, his voice broken. "You truly are a snake." Prince Varian stepped out from the shadows of the archway. He looked immaculate. Not a speck of dust marred his velvet doublet, and his sword, a blade Caelus had gifted him on his 18th birthday, was spotless. "I prefer the term pragmatist," Varian said, walking slowly toward the fallen emperor. "You were a god of war, Caelus. You conquered the north. You tamed the worm of the east. But you were a terrible king. You built an empire on the strength of your arm, but you forgot that empires are held together by the hearts of men. And you broke too many hearts." Caelus fell to one knee. The strength was leaving his limbs. He looked at Varian, seeing the face of the boy he had raised as a brother, now twisted into the visage of a regicide. "The nobles," he coughed. "They promised you the throne?" "The nobles promised me nothing," Varian corrected, stopping 3 feet away. "They promised me their safety. They promised me an end to your endless campaigns. You were going to march on the southern reaches next, weren't you? How many more had to die for your glory?" "It wasn't for glory," he hissed. He tried to stand, to summon the chi, the life energy that had made him the strongest warrior in history. But his meridians were blocked, the poison on Varian's blade, the black lotus, a coward's weapon. It was to unify, to prepare for the shadow tide. Varian laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "The shadow tide? That fairy tale you used to frighten the council? There is no army of darkness coming from the void, Caelus. That was just your madness." Caelus stared at his adopted brother. "He doesn't know. He doesn't know about the seal in the north. He doesn't know that by killing the emperor, he has doomed the world." "Kill me then," Caelus said, his head dropping. "But know this, Varian, when the shadows lengthen and the sky turns black, you will remember this moment, and you will regret it." Varian sighed. "Goodbye, brother." The sword slid into Caelus's back, piercing his heart. It was a cold sensation, not painful precisely, but final. The cold spread from his chest to his limbs, chasing away the heat of his rage. The sounds of the burning city faded. The white snow rushed up to meet him, or perhaps he was falling into an endless dark pit. "I failed," Caelus thought, as his consciousness unraveled. "I failed my kingdom. I failed my sister. I failed to stop the tide." He had lived a life of iron and blood, trusting only in his strength. And in the end, he had died alone, betrayed by the one person he had trusted. "If there is a heaven, let it be a battlefield," he prayed to gods he didn't believe in. "And if there is a hell, I am ready to burn." But as the last ember of his life faded, he didn't see the gates of heaven or the fires of hell. He saw a blinding, searing light. A bell tolled, not with sound, but with a vibration that shattered his very soul. "Master Cael, wake up! You're going to be late!"
The voice was shrill, panicked, and distinctly female. It was not the voice of a soldier. It was not the voice of a dying man. Kaelis gasped, his lungs heaving as if he had just surfaced from deep water. His eyes snapped open. He was not on the obsidian spire. He was not in the freezing snow. He was lying in a soft feather bed, sunlight streaming through lace curtains. The air smelled of beeswax and fresh bread, not blood and smoke. He stared at the ceiling. Wooden beams, a chandelier. My room? No, not his room. His room in the palace had stone vaults and tapestries of war. This ceiling was painted with cherubs and clouds. It was childish. "Master Kael!" The door banged open. A young woman rushed in. She wore a simple linen dress and a white apron. Her hair was tucked under a cap. She looked to be about 16. Mira? Kaelis stared at her. It was Mira, his personal maid from 20 years ago? But Mira had died during the siege of Oakhaven when she was 30. She looked young, vibrant, and terrified. "Master, your father is going to have a fit if you miss the ceremony again," Mira scolded, rushing to the bed. She grabbed his arm, trying to haul him up. "The awakening ceremony starts in less than an hour." Kaelis blinked, his mind racing, his warrior instincts kicking in despite the confusion. He grabbed Mira's wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "Mira," Kaelis said. His voice was different. It wasn't the deep, gravelly baritone of the Emperor. It was lighter, higher. "What year is it?" Mira froze, looking at him as if he had grown a second head. "Master, are you feeling ill? It is the year of the Azure Dragon." Kaelis let go of her hand and brought his own hands up to his face. They were small, pale, callus-free. He wasn't 45 years old. He wasn't the scarred emperor. He scrambled out of bed, stumbling over the sheets, and lunged for the full-length mirror in the corner of the room. The reflection staring back at him made his breath hitch. He saw a boy of 15, lanky, with messy black hair and piercing violet eyes. He wore silk sleeping robes. His skin was unblemished by war. His body was thin, lacking the dense muscle of a lifetime of combat. "This is me," he realized, his heart pounding against his ribs like a war drum. "This is me at 15, before the war, before the betrayal, before I became the emperor." He looked at the desk. There, sitting innocently on a stack of books, was a calendar. Month of the harvest, 842. The awakening ceremony. In his past life, this day had been the beginning of his legend. It was the day he was tested for magical ability. In his past life, he had been found to have a trash talent, a broken affinity for earth magic that was useless for combat. His father, the Duke, had been humiliated. Kaelis was disowned shortly after, forcing him to join the army as a lowly foot soldier, where he had fought his way up with blood and steel over decades. But now, "I'm back," Kaelis whispered, his heart pounding against his ribs like a war drum. "I'm actually back." He looked at his hands again. They clenched into fists. He could feel the chi inside him. It was weak, barely a trickle compared to the ocean he had commanded in his prime. But more importantly, his meridians were not blocked. They were clear. "The Black Lotus poison hasn't been administered yet. I haven't been betrayed." A wave of emotions crashed over him. Relief, confusion, but mostly a cold, hard resolve. The shadow tide would come in exactly 5 years. He knew exactly where the first seal would break. He knew the mistakes he had made. He knew who to trust and who to kill. Varian was currently a 7-year-old in the orphanage Kaelis had sponsored. In his past life, Kaelis had adopted him next year. "I won't adopt him," Kaelis thought, a dark glint in his violet eyes. "This time, I will raise an empire of scholars and mages, not just soldiers. I will prepare for the tide, and I will not die on a tower." "Master Kael," Mira asked, her voice trembling, "you look scary." Kaelis turned to her, and the terrifying aura of the Emperor vanished, replaced by a charming, albeit tired, smile. It was a mask he had worn for decades, one he had forgotten how to use until now. "I am fine, Mira," Kaelis said, his voice steady. "Better than fine." He walked to the window and threw it open. He breathed in the fresh air of the capital, air that wasn't yet choked with the smoke of burning buildings. The city below was bustling, alive, ignorant of the darkness that awaited them. "Prepare my clothes," Kaelis commanded, turning back to the room. He spoke with the authority of a sovereign, which made the maid jump. He softened his tone. "Please, I have a ceremony to attend, and I intend to surprise everyone today." Mira blinked, then nodded furiously, rushing